Good morning, everybody. Here for another day of some live coding, getting some stuff done. There's no one here yet, so I don't know why I'm welcoming all of you, but thank you for those of you that tune in later. I am working on an Alexa skill, and we can bring that up here. So let me just sign into my dev console here. I'm working across two different machines. It's a good way to test workflow and stuff like that too, but I do most of my work at my desk over there. On the other side of the room, and so I've got to make sure everything is committed to GitHub and then move it all over to this machine. And I've got to log in again. So just give me one moment. Good morning, everybody that's here. Welcome. Hopefully you'll see something fun today, or maybe I'll learn something. Who knows how this is going to go. That's what live coding is. So I'm going to get right into my skill. And we can talk a little bit. I am working on this way more than I am on stream. And so I made a lot of progress since we were here together on Tuesday, just because things have been crazy and trying to make some good progress on this thing. Good morning, Kevin Evans. Good to see you. So let's talk a little bit about what this skill is. I think I talked about it on Tuesday a bit, but it never hurts to kind of recap. So ultimately, the goal of this Alexa skill is to be a resource for people that are building Alexa skills. And that means making things easier, better, faster than it would be to dig through tech docs or to demonstrate a feature. I always say that it's impossibly frustrating when you want to see how something behaves or sounds or acts. And in order to do that, you have to build an entire skill. You then have to get all this new code from the tech docs or some other resource into your code. Then you have to run it, which means running it locally or deploying it to something in production, only to just hear how it sounds or what it feels like. And so my goal, the reason that I'm here doing all of this, is to build a skill that lets you see, hear, and feel a lot of those kinds of features. And so I'm starting with some low-hanging fruit. The first ones that I built, let me get my skill up and running here. Let's start some local debugging. Maybe. There we go. We've got our debugging running. So now I can actually play with my skill. And so we'll open up a test tab here just so that you can see what's going on. And I'll just show you a couple of the features that I've already built. So the first one is give me a speech comment, right? Now we can do something boring like that. Like, I don't know what speech comment.
Here is an answer from an Alexa Answers contributor that I translated to get this slap.
Okay, let's pretend that I actually opened my skill. So we're going to say open voice developer, because that's what I wanted to do first.
Hello, and welcome to Voice Developer. What should we do now?
Here. We can see what's going on. So let's jump back to the browser. And hey, welcome to Voice Developer. What should we do now? So we're going to say, give me a speech comment. For those of you that don't know what speech cons are, they're kind of emphatic phrases that Alexa can say with emotion and energy, sometimes sadness, excitement, whatever. But there's hundreds of them across all the languages that we support. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to let people hear them. Now, you'll only be able to hear the ones for your locale. So you would have to change your locale to hear a different one. But it at least gives you a feel for the language that you are working in, what the speech cons are. So you could just say, give me a random one, right? So just give me a speech con. Maybe.
Phew. What would you like to try?
So that one was phew, right? That would be pretty hard to put together to create phonemes or to do any kind of phonetic sounds to make that sound. And we can do that over and over. And every time it's something different. Give me a speech con. She'll say something different this time.
Oink. Did you know that you can ask for sound effects? Just say something like, play a laser sound effect.
So I can do that, but I can also say, just say oink, right? If I want to hear what that specific one sounds like.
Oink. Another thing I can do is play speech cons. Bazinga. Just ask me to say a speech con. What else can I help you with?
The other thing you should notice is that every time I ask it for something, it's giving me different responses, right? This is giving me some engagement, some, hey, here's some other things you can do. Hey, here's what else do you want to try now? But each time it's different. I know I've talked about this at length. Let me jump out of baseball cards and jump into voice stuff. But if you look at my speech, I have these things called action queries. And these action queries are specifically the things that I want to, after I do the thing that the user has asked for, they are the thing that I ask the user, like, okay, what do you want to do now? Like, there's so many things. And I'm starting to write more of them that are kind of recommendations. So, hey, try sound effects. Hey, try speech cons. I also built a repeat intent, which we'll talk about in just a second. Yeah, Kevin, I'm with you. So Kevin just mentioned that he's maybe ready to jump on the Cleveland bandwagon. I can't imagine anyone from the Pittsburgh area or that has ever loved a Pittsburgh sports team of any kind jumping on the Cleveland bandwagon, but we are we're happy to have you. There's lots of room on this bandwagon. And I'm happy to hear that. The Cleveland Browns did very well last night. I was not convinced we were going to win that game until the clock ran out, but they did somehow find a win. Also, the Cleveland Guardians, if you haven't been following it, they are the youngest team in baseball by far. In fact, I think the average age of the Cleveland Guardians is younger than almost every AAA minor league team, which is remarkable. The average age of the Guardians is like 3 years younger than the next nearest team. So they're not a team. When you have a team of young players like that, you don't expect to see a lot out of them, right? They're still learning. They're still trying to figure out major league pitching. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. And they're doing it. They are currently in first place. There are 8 games left. They're well ahead of second and third place. It's not over. They haven't made the playoffs yet. If they lose the rest of their games and one of those teams wins the rest of their games, the Guardians won't even make the playoffs. It's a very Cleveland feeling. But they're in a really good spot. And so they have won a ton. Actually, let's take a look at this because it's a lot. If we go look at the standings for baseball and find those Cleveland Guardians, if we look at their scores, what are we doing? I don't want any of your ads. Scores. I don't know if this is what I want. Schedule. I think this is what I want to see. So if you just look at September, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row to start September, and I thought the wheels were coming off the bus. But since then, they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games, and they have lost 1, 2, 3. So they're 14-7, which is a 666 winning percentage, which is pretty good in baseball. But in the meantime, the Twins have been terrible. The White Sox, we just swept them. And those are the two teams that are behind them. So I feel like with these last 7 games, the Rangers are not good and the Rays are good. But I'm hoping by the time we get here, it won't matter. So anyway, that's my Cleveland sports rant for the day. Let's get back to some skill building. So as I mentioned, you can say the name of a specific speech con. So you're like, what does that one sound like again? Like I know Bazinga is one, so I can just say Bazinga. And it will say that one for me.
Bazinga.
There we go.
What would you like to do next?
One of the other things I'm doing right now is providing cards so you can see exactly what the syntax would be to use that. So you can just say, oh, I say as, interpret as interjection. I put the word inside the brackets like HTML, and then say as to close it. I'll do something nicer with APL or something here eventually, but cards were an easy way to just get something on the screen. But the same goes for sound effects. So I can say play a sound effect. And this is what I have been working on over the last day or two. And it hasn't been a lot of coding. In fact, there's not a...
I didn't find a match for sound effect. So here's a random sound effect called servos. 6.
That's weird. Oh, because I typed it as one word.
What can I help you do next?
Okay, so I said play a sound effect, but I said it as one word. If I say play a sound effect...
Here's a random sound effect called hands. 4. Another thing I can do is play speech cons. Bazinga! Just ask me to say a speech con. What else can I help you with?
So you can see how those kind of follow-ups would get annoying if I only had a few of them. So I'll be writing dozens of those so that you don't feel like you're hearing the same things over and over. But I'm able to play a sound effect. So this is where I started to run into some issues. Because if we look at the tech docs, Alexa... sound effect library, and we look at the sound effect library. There are currently, I think it tells me in here, maybe it doesn't. I know that there are 3,018 sound effects in this list. So I can scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll forever. There's 3,018 of these. It's a lot. And so as I started thinking about how I want to make these available, so like I want Squeaks 6, right? If I ask for that, I think I can get it. So let's say play Squeaks 6.
I found one sound effect matching Squeaks 6. This sound effect is called Squeaks 6. Achievement unlocked.
Nice.
You have listened to 25 sound effects. Another thing I can do is play speech cons. Bazinga! Just ask me to say a speech con. What else can I help you with?
So I kind of did an early reveal there as well. First, you heard the sound effect, and if I play Squeak 6, it's the same sound, it matches. That's great. But then you also heard that she gave me an achievement. And that is what this little piece is here. Achievement unlocked. You have listened to 25 sound effects. So I've also built an achievement engine into this skill so that it encourages people to go explore and try things that they might not have otherwise tried. But this is a complex problem because as we look at this list of sound effects, you can see that like there are lots and lots of skills that have the word would in them. As an example, lots and lots of them, or weather, or wind, or thunder. You can see there's lots of thunder. And so, Tom, you're right. It's nice that they're in a taxonomy, but it also makes it challenging for people to ask for things by voice. So what I run into here is how do I best present this content to the user when they ask for something that's a little more vague? So let's use... We can see all these thunder ones. I mean, there's a thunder 13, and then there's thunder rumble. So there's like 15 at minimum. There might be more as I scroll up through the list. Let's see if I can search this. Thunder, rain thunder, and then the 13, and then the 2. So there should be 16 total that match thunder. So as a result of that, I need to figure out a way to present the user with the 16. And there's a number of factors that come into this. First, I have already built, if we look at my code, I've already built a slot. So let's come down and look at my model. I've already built a slot that has all of the sound effects. So you can see this is the actual path that I have to use to play the sound effect. I've stored that in the ID value. I have a name value that's hits 1 or moves 3 or thunder 13 or whatever, right? Those are all sitting here. And then I also have synonyms for those things. And right now I'm still working on this. It works fine, but I'm still working on deduping it. There's duplicates in here, so you can see weather, thunder, thunder, weather, thunder. And what it's actually doing is taking these values, the name, the ID and the name, and it's creating synonyms based on the words that are in this taxonomy. So Tom, you're right. This is where this taxonomy becomes handy for me, because I can use all of those terms as potential synonyms for these sound effects. But it does end up with a lot of duplication, because you can see these all end up pretty much with the same thing. In a perfect world, if I had all the content creators in the world, what I would do is have someone go through and listen to all these sound effects and try and give them additional properties that make them a little more unique. So I want a rainy thunder sound, or whatever. Like there's all sorts of ways we could try to distinguish these. But ultimately, if I have a slot with all of these values, and you can see this just goes on forever and ever. It's a big slot, 3018 values. It keeps going. There's the end. This is a massive list of data, and I'm trying to match the user with a specific sound effect that meets their needs. So the way that I've gone about this, I solve this in 3 ways, and so I'll just kind of walk you through how I think about this. So the first thing that I do is I grab, what did the user say? Right? So they said, give me a thunder sound effect. So I get the word thunder as the user's spoken words. Then I also have some resolved words. These are what Alexa provides me in what we call entity resolution. So if we look at, I think I can look at this. If I look at the incoming information that I got from the request, you can see that in here, this is kind of hard to read, but I have resolutions right here. And then it says, hey, I found a successful match. And the match that I found was Squeaks 6, right? That's the one that I asked for earlier. But this gets more complex when we ask something vague. So let me go do that just to show you what that looks like. Let's go there. And then I will just say, give me or play thunder sound effect. Maybe.
I found 16 sound effects matching thunder. There is a limit of 5 sound effects per response, so I picked 5 at random. Here is the sound effect named Thunder 6. This sound effect is called Thunder Rumble 2. Here is the sound effect named Thunder 12. This one is named Thunder 5. This is Thunder 7. Another thing I can do is play speech cons. Bazinga! Just ask me to say a speech con. What else can I help you with?
Okay, so with all of that, what you can see is that what I chose to do, and I don't know that this is the right approach, but I'm kind of constrained by some of the requirements that Alexa has, is that I chose to get all 16 values. I pull those out of my database based on some matching, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then I just choose 5 at random out of that list to play for you. There was a consideration, and maybe this is something that I will revisit, to just playing the first 5 and then saying, do you want to hear more, and playing 5 more. But one of the constraints that I have is that I can only play 5 sound effects per response. So that's pretty limiting. And there are some search terms that I could use that would bring me back 100 results. I don't think anyone's going to want to parse through 100 results And if I choose to just play them in order, that means that every time you ask for thunder sound effects, you're going to get the same first 5, have to say yes, next first 5, have to say yes. And there's 4 sets of those. That just feels like a lot to go through. So what I chose to do instead is to pull back all 16. I do have all the records available to me, so I could do something interesting if I wanted to. But ultimately what I do is I just pick 5 of them at random, which means that each time you ask for a thunder sound effect, you could potentially hear 5 different ones. But it doesn't require you to step through and say, yes, 5 more, yes, 5 more, yes, 5 more. But I am limited by the ability to only play 5 at a time. So I mentioned that to the user. I found 16. There's a limit of 5 sound effects per response, so I picked 5 at random. Here's the sound effect named Thunder 6. And then it does Thunder Rumble 2, Thunder 12, Thunder 5, Thunder 7. So it just picked 5 of the items out of the list at random. And so that's a little bit of what I wanted to talk about here, because as we look at my resolutions, you can see that in my resolutions here, I, in fact, have a successful match. And then if we look at values, my first one is this one, right? So this is Thunder 1. Then I have Thunder 2. Then I have Thunder 3. Then I have Thunder 4. And then I have Thunder 8 for some reason. Now, entity resolution also provides me a constraint, which is that it will only ever return me 5. And my experience with entity resolution has been that even if you have 50 matching values, it will always pick the same 5. So if I relied on entity resolution to bring me back a set of results that I could play for my user, they would only ever get those first 5. And I wouldn't have a way, relying exclusively on Alexa and entity resolution, I would not have a way to get more. There just isn't a way. So that's where I had to kind of get a little creative. And so what I do is, based on the words the user said and the resolved values, I'm going to use those in a couple of ways. So the first thing I do is say, if we didn't resolve any words, so there were 0 matches, no entity resolution of any kind, then one of 2 things is true. Either one, you said, give me a sound effect, which doesn't fill in the slot, which would give me no resolutions. Or you said something like, give me a taco sound effect. And with taco, there isn't a single term in the entire sound effects library that matches taco. So it would not resolve anything. I would end up with 0 resolve words. And as a result of that, we would land in the same category. And so I actually have different responses for each of those 2 cases, just so you guys have seen this. If I go to my speech table, for sound effect, you can see I have sound effect random. I'll add more of these, of course. But I say, here's a random sound effect called X, and then I play it. For a not resolved, this is where you said something, but I don't have any matches. I actually let them know that. So I say, oh, I didn't find a match for tacos. So here's a random sound effect called title, whatever the title of the sound effect I picked is, and then a sound effect. So in my I don't have any matches situation, I actually jump into the database and I grab a random sound effect. Now, I've talked about this before in my experience with Airtable specifically, is that they don't give me a mechanism to randomize or shuffle or pull a random record just out of a table. They'll let me pull up to 100 records, and out of those 100 records, I have to basically pull them back and then randomize them. But if I say only give me 5 records, I'm always going to get those first 5. And so what I need a way to do is when I query the database, I can only pull 100 back, so I can't pull the whole list of 3,000. I'm only going to pull 100. So one, I would always get the same 100. So I almost have to trick the database into giving me a random query every time. So the way that I've solved this, the way that I go into the database and I grab a small subset of random records, is that I rely on the randomization of their unique IDs. And so if I look at sound effect, this is my table. I have a table with all of this data that we just talked about. I actually built myself a column over here on the right. This is a formula. This formula pieces all the stuff together. And so it creates the JSON for me. So when I want to make some change, like let's say I can't do it there. Let's go to the synonyms column. Let's say that taco is a value I want to use for this one. Well, I can do that. and it will add it to my list of synonyms here in just a second. I don't know what's taking so long. And then you can see that it also updates my JSON. So I now have taco as a synonym. So I can make any changes I want to this database. All I need to do is copy this column, paste it into my my model, and I'm off and running. I don't have to do any extra work. I don't have to modify or update extra files, whatever. I can just copy this and go. So let me take tacos out of there. I don't actually want tacos to be a synonym for that one. But out here on the very right-hand side, I have a column called record ID. This is a unique value that Airtable gives to every record. They all start with REC, which stands for record. And what it does is gives me a randomized code. So there is actual randomness here. These are generated as the records are created, and it's a random collection of letters. As I scroll through this, you can see that they're all over the place, although they do seem to be alphabetical, which is weird. I never noticed that before. I think it's because all these records, well, they're not anymore, but the first few certainly were. If you look at this, are you guys seeing that too? Like I have REC and then a capital B, and as I scroll down, then it's capital C's, then it's capital D's, capital E's, F, G. I think we went through a lot of the alphabet there, and then we kind of lose it. H, I, J. Yeah, it's still going K, and then we lose it to lowercase, but those are lowercase alphabetical. But it's probably because I created all of these records at the same time. There may be some rhyme or reason to how they put these record values together, but at the end of the day, I have a bunch of random codes for all of these sound effects. So what I do in my code as a way to query this and to pull back the records that I need is that I have a very simple function that gets me a 2-character code. So I have, if we go to helper, somewhere in here, yeah, so I have an array called characters that's just all of the lowercase letters and digits, 0 through 9. And then I have a function that basically just pulls 2 random values out of that array. Any 2 are fine, doesn't really matter to me, but it pulls 2 random array values out of that table, out of that array. So what's cool about this then is that I end up with a randomized 2-character string. I can then use that to query my database. So in my query, where I actually say get a random sound effect, in here you can see that I'm passing in this search code. This is that 2-letter string. And what I do is I say, I need you to find me a record that has that 2-letter string in its randomized user ID string. This takes a database of 3,000 records and turns it into generally around 15 to 25 records remaining, but in a random pattern. I don't know which 25 I'm going to get. And so as a result of that, I can now query the database, pull a few records out that are random, and then once I've pulled those records, then I just pick one of them at random out of that and return that to my function. So when I say, go get me a random sound effect, that's what's being returned to me, and that's what lives in this sound effect variable. So out here, I also need to then construct the SSML for that. So I take the name of that record and I throw that into an audio tag. I take some other stuff for my cards and I pull those in. But this chunk here is what I use to go get one random record from my database without any other input, because the user didn't give me any, right? We didn't resolve anything. Maybe they didn't provide a slot value in any case. So then I moved on to my next step, which was, what if we do resolve something? What if we get some resolutions? Well, my initial instinct was, well, we should just use those. And that works for 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 records. But if there's 5 represents the same kind of information as if there were 18 of them, or 20 or 25. I don't actually know how many there were. 5 just happens to be the max. So there could be 5, but there could also be 30. So what I decided to do was, and what I say here, first, try to find natural matches in the database. This allows us to find lots of matches where entity resolution will only ever bring back 5. So pick 5 randomly from the list and play those. So that is what you heard a moment ago. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm getting a very specific sound effect, right? where I'm passing in the words that the user spoke. So if they said, "Give me a thunderstorm," let's say thunderstorm, a good example. Let's look at the database for a second here. If we look at the sound library, let's find something. Thunder rumble, right? So thunder rumble, or rumble thunder, or if we lose our search term here. See if I can find something else. Something that has two good words in it. Air horn. This is what I was using for some of my testing. So air horn is a good example. So give me an air horn sound effect. So what I have, if we look at the database, is that if I look for records that have the word air and horn in them, what I'm searching for is a string that exactly matches air and horn together. That's not actually what I want, because I don't know in what order the user is going to provide those words, or if those words are even necessarily next to each other. So you can see, based on my search here, air horn, I found 13 records. If I just change this to air, there's 151 records. So what if I say horn air? According to this basic search, there's no records that match this, right? And this is where things start to get a little fuzzy, because I'm not saying that they would say horn air, they would say air horn, but there are a lot of other instances where they might say words not in order that I have in my database. And so this is where I needed to solve like a fuzzier search. Now, I'm not doing any kind of fuzzy searching or really any kind of machine learning approach on this at all. What I am doing, though, is taking all the words that you provided me and searching them individually. So instead of doing a search like this, where I'm actually searching just for this string, let me close this and I can show you what it's like to say where I'll use generated synonyms as the column that I'm looking at. I think that's where I search. But generated synonyms contains, and I'm going to say air, and then I'm going to do it again. Generated synonyms contains horn. And so now I'm getting a set of records, there's 13 of them, that match both air and horn. And it doesn't matter what order they're in, right? I can search it either way, any way that I'd like, and I will always come back with those same records. What's nice about this is that I'm able to search just that each of the words happens to exist, not that the phrase itself as a whole exists. And so in here, what I'm doing is saying, I want you to, I pass in the get, to get sound effect. I say, here's the words they said. And then in get sound effect, what I'm actually doing is creating one. So if we look at get random sound effect, you'll remember earlier that I said, I want you to find a specific two-letter code in my record ID. So this is the part of the query that we use to specify that, hey, I want to search this value in this field. And if you find something, then that qualifies as a record. And if you don't, then obviously exclude that thing from my search. So because of that, if we look at get sound effect, what I do here is that I'm generating a bunch of those find statements. So I'm looking at the title column of my database. I'm not sure that's the right place to look. That's this one. So maybe I need to change that. But I'm searching the title column of my database and then saying, hey, if you find this word and this word and this word, right? We're just looping through here. For each individual word that the user said, I want to search on all of those individually and filter my list down. And so I have this find query variable that I create. And out here on the right-hand side, you can see that I just tack that on. So it's going to add that to all of the other query details that I have, like is that disabled or any other properties that I may be searching. So that is how I am searching through that entire database. But it actually feels like, now that I look at this, I don't know that title is necessarily where I want to be searching. It feels like generated synonyms is actually the place that I would want to search. Because this only gives me this. Although if they say air horn 1, that wouldn't live here. Maybe I need to just search the Alexa slot JSON, which has all the values appropriately. I don't know. This is working really nicely, so I'll leave it until I need to change it. But I could come up with another column that is the thing that I search when I'm looking for specific sound effects. Right now, I'm just using this title column. I don't know. I don't know if I've talked myself out of that yet, but I could also search this and look for the same values. Let's just change that. Let's just see what happens. Alexa slot JSON is what we're going to look at for instead. It's the beauty of coding live, right? We can just try stuff. So let's restart our service and jump back in here and try that and see what we run into. So if I say play an air horn sound effect, it should play 5 for me. This is going to take just a second.
You asked for an air horn sound effects. I found 5. This one is named air horn 1. This sound effect is called air horn 2. This one is named air horn 3.
Yeah, that's another problem.
This one is named air horn 4. Here is the sound effect named air horns 1. What can I help you do next?
So I said play an air horn sound effect, and it said, hey, you asked for an air horn sound effect. I need to fix that. Why is that like that? Let's go fix that really quick. Speech, sound effect, sound effect. What did that say? You asked for an air horn sound effect. Why does it say sound effects? You asked. That just shouldn't have an S. I don't know why I put an S on there. You asked for. No, because it's pulling the an in, maybe. I think it's just that I used the word and. Let's try this again. Play a air horn sound effect.
There's 13 sound effects matching air horn. There is a limit of 5 sound effects per response, so I picked 5 at random. This sound effect is called air horns. 8. Here is the sound effect named air horns. 5. This sound effect is called air horns. 9. Here is the sound effect named air horns. 2. Here is the sound effect named air horn. 3. Did you know I can repeat what I just said? Just say, repeat that, to hear anything I say a second time.
So let's see if this will just give me the one specific one I want.
I found 2 sound effects matching air horn 3. Here is the sound effect named air horn 3. This is air horns 3. What would you like to try?
Maybe we'll leave that. We'll leave it searching the Alexa JSON. That's fine. But we're able to say play air horn 3. So I think I can also do play giant monster and
I found one sound effect matching Giant Monster 10. This one is named Giant Monster 10. Did you know that you can ask for sound effects? Just say something like, play a laser sound effect.
Okay, so this is how our sound effects work. And I guess the last piece of the code that I should talk about is that in our sound effect intent, this is me going into the database, right? So I check and go look for a specific sound effect with specific search terms. That's what we just talked about, is that we put a bunch of find conditions in. And if the length of the records that we bring back from the database is greater than 0, then what we're going to do is we randomly grab some, we assemble them into an array, and then we'll play them down here. This is what actually pulls all that together. Then let's say that our database didn't bring anything back. This seems like an unlikely case, but as we start to add synonyms like taco, which are only found in the synonyms, that means the only place you're going to find them is in entity resolution. So what I'm doing is, if when we search, we're searching the JSON. So that means that we did resolve something, and then we went and searched the database to find all the matches. But if I have, if the user says, give me a taco sound effect, so I resolve something, but then it goes and searches the Alexa skill JSON. Well, I was searching the title, so I would not find a match. So this actually may be a case that we never hit anymore because of the change that I just made. But the point of this was, if for some reason we don't find anything in the database, then let's just play the ones that we resolved. Now, I'm not going to get rid of this because I'm sure there's going to be situations in which we missed the database somehow, but we did resolve things. So all this does is takes the records out of the resolutions, this sound effect resolve words that we had at the top, and I'm actually getting the actual sound effects right out of there. I'm looping through that collection of resolved words, generating the appropriate SSML for each of those sound effects, and that's all done out here at the end. You can see I have my SSML here at the end. And then once I've done all that, you'll also notice that I have these counters. This is something that I just added new yesterday, but you can see that I'm counting how many sound effects did I play for the user. Did I play one? In this case, I'm looping through the number of records, so I don't know how many it's going to be. And then I have this statement here, which is, let's update the user's sound effect count. So one of the things that I'm doing is, if you look at my database for user, there's only one, there's just me for now. But you can see that I have listened to 43 sound effects. I have listened to 9 speech cons. It's not a major effort. It's one line of code for me to say, hey, let's start paying attention to this digit. Now, of course, I have to create the database tables and whatever. But once that's built, it's one line of code to basically call in and say, hey, I want to keep track of how many times they've listened to a sound effect. Then that allows me to do things like this. I have an achievement engine that says, hey, have they listened to 1 speech con or 10 or 25 or 50 or 100, 250? And then I award you with achievements. You can see the ones that have records here in user achievement. Those are the ones that I've actually completed. But let me listen to a few more sound effects, and we'll get to 50. In fact, I could just change the number to make it easier. So let's go to user. I'll change this to 49. And then let's go listen to one more sound effect. And what we should hear is that it's going to play the sound effects, but then it's also going to say, hey, achievement unlocked. You just listened to your 50th sound effect. So play a laser sound effect. Let's do that.
There's 12 sound effects matching laser. There is a limit of 5 sound effects per response, so I picked 5 at random.
So you can already
This
see
is Sci-Fi Laser Gun Battle
to 54,
1.
so we're over 50. We're going to listen to some sound effects, and then
Here
you'll
is
see
the
at the
sound
end,
effect named Sci-Fi Laser Gun Fires 4. Here is the sound effect named Sci-Fi Laser Gun Fires 5. This is Sci-Fi Laser Gun Fires 1. This one is named Sci-Fi Laser Gun Fires Large 4.
Whoa.
Achievement unlocked. You have listened to 50 sound effects. What would you like to try?
So it was able to, just by placing that one line of code here, which is update the user sound effect count. This goes off into a labyrinth of other things, but update user sound effect count basically just updates the record in the database. And then once I've done that, I check and say, hey, based on their new total, did they just achieve anything? And so the check sound effects achievement, this piece here then has the logic that says, oh, did they accomplish the thing that we thought they might accomplish? Now, I've done these in reverse order. I don't know that this is right, but I feel like over time, this will require fewer calls. As it starts, the first time, you're only going to hit 250, 150, 25, 10, and then you get to 1. But then you're never going to get here again. Well, I guess you will until you get to 10. But once you get to 10, then you never hit this line again. I thought about putting these the other way, which is 1, 10, 25, 50, 125, 250. But then you're going to hit that one logic every single time, no matter what, forever. And so I put them in the reverse order because I think as time progresses, welcome W. Giorgio, as time progresses, I think you'll hit this fewer and fewer times, right? Because it's going to run out once it hits the qualifier that you hit. So we just hit this one. I have award specific achievement. This just goes ahead, gets the achievement out of the database, gets the speech for it, all the other stuff. And then if you don't already have that achievement, then it creates a new record for you in the database. Anyway, so this now makes achievements really, really easy for me to add because I have the whole engine. This award specific achievement file, this is the thing that takes a code, right? I have those codes in my database for achievements. So if we look at those, these codes here, all I have to do is pass that function, the, what do we just call it? Award specific achievement. I pass it a specific code along with my handler input so I know who the user is and locale and all that other stuff. And it goes in, checks to make sure that that achievement actually exists. And if it does, then it checks to say, do they already have the achievement? Because if they do, we don't want to give it to them again. And if they don't have it, then we go ahead and we create a new record in the database for that specific achievement, and then pull the speech back and say that to the user and all that stuff. So this is done. Like that, I don't need to do anything additional with this. But this means that I can add achievements to any page anytime. I'm doing this for intents now. So I have a check intent achievements. This is the entire logic. It's just passing through the code. So if I come to my repeat intent is very, very simple. I'm basically storing what I just said in 2 session variables. And then when you say repeat that or say that again or whatever, it comes into this intent and it just populates the speak and the reprompt with the thing that I said the last time. But in here, you can see that I have var speak output where I'm saying check intent achievements. If they've never used the repeat intent before, then what they're going to get is an achievement for using the repeat intent. Again, the way that I'm doing this, the way that I'm designing this whole skill is to encourage people to explore and learn and try new features and find things. And so getting achievements just for using an intent feels like a way to encourage people to say something else. Let me try this. Let me try that. And so as I build every intent, now every intent will have its own achievement because you just did the thing once. But you'll also get achievements for listening to a speech con and listening to a sound effect. That's what this chunk is. I'm going to give you the ability to change the voice of your skill. So you can say, I always want to hear Justin. And then it will forever hold on to and remember that you want Justin as your voice. And that will be the voice that it uses in perpetuity until you tell it to change again. So you'll see that you get achievements for each of the individual voices. This can go on and on and on. And we can have another one that's just like a voice counter. So you've changed the voice 10 times or 15 times or whatever. So this makes things really easy to add a whole library of achievements to my skill, and I can do things like this as well. I just have to add some logic, and that's where these logic blocks come in, like check sound effect achievements. How many sound effects have you listened to? I need to check and compare against some logic, and that's where this works. So W. Georgia says, how can you use the actual voice names? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Like I can say, change the voice to Justin. And then I'm catching the name Justin. I build a slot that is just the custom voice names. And so I get the word Justin. I save that in my database. Again, I already have a spot for it. I just haven't built that logic yet. But in user, you can see that I have voice. If the voice field is empty, then I use Alexa's voice. And if the voice field has a name, then I use that instead. I think it's okay to ask for different voices. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll find out when I go through certification that they don't want me to do that, but it feels like I'm okay. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I would think, especially for the meta that is this skill, which is to talk about Alexa things, I already can't use Alexa or skill or a number of other words in my invocation name, which it makes it impossibly hard for an Alexa skill developer to find a skill like this. But right now I'm calling it voice developer. I'll probably change it somehow. But yeah, that's my intention, is to be able to ask for the different voices and go. So we'll see how they feel about that. That would be an easy thing to rip out if I had to pull it out for certification, but it's kind of a cool thing to be able to change the skill so you hear that voice and hear it say all the things in those voices. One of the other things that I built into this, which I'd like to show you, is the ability to buy a product. I don't know if I showed this on Tuesday or not, but in here I also have a buy product intent. This is literally all the code you need to sell a product. So in here, I just create a new directive. It's connections.start connection. We hand it off to this buy shopping products, and we pass in an ASIN. This is the ASIN for an Echo Dot, Gen 4 Echo Dot in Charcoal. And so I have this speak output that I can provide. That's what it's going to say. And then I add my directive, which is this action test. So what I can just do is say, buy an Echo. So I can just talk to my skill. Buy an Echo. This should work.
Sending product to Amazon.
That's my speech.
Here are the product details from Amazon. Your purchase includes Echo Dot, 4th Gen, Smart Speaker, Charcoal. The total including tax, after $5 in discounts and credits, is $48.14. Would you like to buy it?
So again, all I did was hand off that directive, but this is where I feel like a skill like this is valuable, because if you or I as developers are like, oh, you know what, I want to sell a product. I wonder what that sounds like. I want to know what that experience is like for a user. One of the other things you can see is if I scroll down here, they give me this really nice APL interface that shows me the tax and the total and everything. And so it says, would you like to buy it? So I'm going to say yes, and I'll just show you how this works.
To order it, tell me Jeff's voice code.
And once I've told it my code.
Thanks. Order placed. Your total is $48.14, including tax, and will be delivered by September 25th. Jeff, I had trouble doing what you asked. Please try again.
So Jeff, I had trouble doing what you're asked. This is my error inside my code. So I am not handling their response appropriately. But I can show you that if I go to Amazon.com now, I look at my orders. Look at that. I ordered an Echo Dot. So this is the order that I just placed. And this is why I think this is super cool, because that was so incredibly easy. Now let's cancel that item because I don't actually want one. And order created by mistake. I wish they had like a testing code or whatever option, but they don't. Cancel selected items. And that order has been canceled. Great. So Malero asked a question. Speaking of quality control, is anyone else experiencing extra long certification times? I usually hear back in a day or two, but my skill has been in review for a week and a half now. The only guidance I can give you on that, Malero, is it depends on what you're doing. If you have a very simple, straightforward skill that doesn't have anything to do with engaging with children or monetization in any way, you're not selling any products, you're just kind of like, hey, I have some content and I want people to be able to use it. Those skills go through certification pretty quickly, but the more policies that they have to address and look at, the longer certification can take. And so I think the standard response is 48 to 72 hours is generally what I expect to see. That being said, the more complex and the more involved you are with our policies, and the policies can all be reviewed in the Alexa Skills Certification Guidelines, the more of the policies you kind of nudge up against, the longer it's going to take. And in fact, I'm to the point now where I have enough of this skill working, right? The sound effects library is now fully searchable. The speech cons work. I have the ability to buy a product. I have an achievement engine built. If we look at what else is going on in here, the repeat intent is functional. I haven't built my help engine yet. That's going to take a little bit of work. My stop intent plays a cool sound effect. I could play that for you. So I wanted to give something consistent. I have all these crazy goodbyes. So I wanted to have something at least consistent so you knew that that was the goodbye.
I'm out of here like spit through a trumpet.
So that is my parting sound every time. So that is how I do stop, right? And so same way with my speech. If we come in here and look at, I have a whole bunch of goodbyes. These are all just crazy goodbyes, and one of these is I'm out of here like spit through a trumpet. I don't know where that one is. But like I'm gonna make like a bakery truck and haul buns or whatever, right? They're all just like funny little goodbyes. Some of them are from movies, like this is from the Truman Show. But I tend to use this same list for a lot of different things. So it's kind of fun because like there's movie references and funny little things. May the force be with you, all that kind of stuff. But it just picks one of these at random. So I thought it was nice to have kind of a closing sound effect as well. I did this with the Star Wars databank also, where I have what sounds like a computer robot kind of like powering up and opening. Like it's like a holocron, like you can hear it kind of opening and you're talking to it. And then when you are done, like you hear it kind of slam shut and close. But it always says something snarky and Star Warsy about goodbye. So here's the one we used. So those are my goodbyes as well. So as we think about the stuff that I have here, one of the things that I want to tweak up is that I'm also working on a Q&A module for this. And the Q&A module is, this is some older data that I used probably 5 years ago. But what I want to do is create a database like this of things you might ask about. And this includes not only these titles that are here, like what is Alexa Live? We should have, Alexa Live is a free educational event. But like the last time I looked at this, it was coming up in 2020. So it's been quite a while. And I would need to go through and update this content. So the idea here is that, again, you can ask questions. Tell me about agencies, or tell me about payments. Well, then I could pull this one. I could also pull ISPs. I could pull paid skills. I could, like, all of those things could come through. And then I could say, hey, here's some information I have on those subjects. And they, for the most part, a lot of them end with a URL. So you can see that I have these link prefixes and links. So this is a way for me to say on a card or through APL, like, hey, here's some more info. And they're all these alexa.design links. And so these alexa.design links let me point you to the specific place. So it's always like, hey, here's some base information about the topic you asked me. To know more, go here and go read this thing. So anyway, that is, this is a much bigger project. I have the logic working. Like if we say, who is Jeff Blankenberg, right? That works today. So tell me about Jeff Blankenberg. Pick that wrong. Maybe it'll work.
I don't have a record for Jeff Blankenberg. My apologies. I'll do some research. Instead,
can't even spell my own name right.
You asked me about Jeff Blankenberg. Jeff Blankenberg is Alexa's chief technology evangelist. You can find him on Twitter, Twitch, and GitHub as @Jeff Blankenberg. Ashley Rendell. What would you like to try?
I forgot that I added that to the table. So if I come in and find my record and find the speech version of that, the voice response, you can see that down here at the end I had added a person's name just as a demonstration. But that that's pulling directly from this database. So I already have like the capabilities built. What I need to do is focus on filling in all of these fields and making sure that I have the most relevant content. And in a perfect world, we could even crowdsource this, right? Let you guys contribute and add things as you think of stuff people would want. I'll also have, the thing I have not built yet is the missed answer. This is stuff people asked for and we didn't have an answer for it. This is a guide for me to say, oh, somebody's asking about chocolate. Well, if people are going to ask about chocolate, we should have an answer. Maybe it just might be like, hey, chocolate is made from milk and cocoa and whatever. And I don't know why you're asking, but hopefully that helps, or whatever. But like we can then see what are the things that people are asking that we weren't able to respond to. And this is a quick way for us to then remedy that. So it doesn't solve it for the first person that asked, but it does solve it for all future ones, right? So this is a piece that I have not built yet. You can see all these records are 2020 for the most part, but I'm going to be fixing that. Another thing that we're going to do is with office hours. We're going to let you ask for office hours episodes from a specific date, and then we'll just play that episode directly from YouTube in the skill. My hope is that we'll also be able to do things like our webinars and Alexa Live and all of that stuff, so that if you want to watch it on your Echo Show, you can do that just by firing up this skill as well. So huge scope to this thing. Playing video, interacting with Amazon, asking Q&A, interacting with all the kinds of things you might want to hear. I'll have ISPs and other stuff in here that you can play with as well, so you can get a feel for what those things sound like. And there's a lot to be said for when you go to build your skill and you want to sell a subscription. There's a lot to be said for knowing what that's going to sound like. What does it sound like when I hand it off to the directive and it sells a subscription to my user? What are the words that it uses? What does it sound like? What do I need to prepare for myself? And so that is ultimately what this skill is meant to provide, is insights into what things sound like, provide as much functionality as I can. Like a good example is the repeat intent, right? There is a built-in Amazon.repeat intent, built-in intent, but we don't provide any of the functionality for it. So all the entire source code for this skill is also available on my GitHub. It's called Voice Developer. So if you want to see how I implemented that, or how I solved this problem, or how I'm, whatever, you can use this skill, be like, oh, that's what that sounds like. Now, how do I do it? Oh, cool. I'll just go into the source code for that skill, look at the intent handler, look at how these pieces go together, and you can have full access to examples for hopefully all the things. I mean, I don't know that I can do everything, only because sometimes things conflict or whatever, but I'm going to try and include as much as I possibly can in the skill. So the point is, this is going to go to certification probably soon, next couple weeks, but then I can continue adding to it and continue pushing new features out regularly, especially as we have new things launch. So, all right, it's after 9 o'clock. I should probably get to work and do some other things, but this was a good adventure today. We made some good progress. I'm going to continue working on the achievements and the Q&A stuff, and I need at least to implement this missed answer thing, so that if we hear something that we weren't expecting, we can quickly respond to it. And I could even build in an engine that like sends my team an email like, hey, someone just asked about dev days. We should put something in the database. And it really is as simple as updating this column, adding a new record here, and no other effort is required, because this will, I'm also using dynamic entities so that I'm feeding this entire database in. Now that get more complex, I think, after we get over 100 or 250. I don't remember what the limit is there. But you can see also out here at the end, I have that same slot value JSON. So I can just go into the skill, update the slot values, and that doesn't require certification or anything. So it makes it pretty easy. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back Tuesday, probably Thursday. I would love to ramp up at some point to every day and just keep working on this stuff, but just not there yet. I need more time, more flexibility. I may also start broadcasting these on the official Alexa channels too, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, thank you guys for being here. I'll see you soon. Have a good weekend.